Folks in Robstown will have a decision to make in the upcoming November 5th election concerning the city's flooding and drainage issues.
On the ballot, a $9.5 million bond, money that will be used to improve the drainage in some of the worst spots for flooding. Our Bill Churchwell reports.
Prop A would ask voters within the drainage district to borrow up to $9.5 million to fix several big projects in both the Robstown and Petronilla area. The biggest project improving the ditch along Bosques Road near the high school, something that would help prevent flooding in the Bluebonnet neighborhood.
We don't need a natural disaster such as a hurricane to flood that community. As long as there's rain for 2 or 3 hours straight.
The second project would fix drainage issues in the Casablanca area along Ruben Chavez Road. A third project would target Petronilla.
All of these projects, you're widening the ditches, cleaning them out, and putting upgraded infrastructure in there for drainage because they haven't been looked at in over 30 years.
As it stands, the tax rate would be 0.057 cents. That means citizens with a house worth $100,000 in the drainage district would see an increase of $57 a year on their tax bill if the bond passes. Ramirez says depending on the final project cost, it could be as low as $40.
Of course, these communities are some of the most underserved communities that don't necessarily have a voice. So all three of the drainage commissioners have gone in this, with their heart in the right place to try to fix a problem.
Election day is Tuesday, November 5th. Bill Churchwell, 3 News.